It was one of those perfect rainy Friday nights, the kind where the whole world feels muted, like someone turned the volume down just enough to make everything softer. The city outside Zane's house was drenched in silver sheets of water, and the only sound was the steady thrum of rain tapping against the window. Inside, it was warm, cozy, familiar. Zane sat cross-legged on the floor, controller in hand, cursing under his breath as my character beat his for the third time in a row. "Bro, you're cheating. I swear," he said, nudging my leg with his sock foot. I grinned and tossed a half-eaten slice of pepperoni pizza onto the empty box beside us. "I'm just better. Accept it." He rolled his eyes, that lopsided grin tugging at the corner of his mouth, the one I'd seen a million times and still never got tired of. His laugh came easy, echoing through the dim living room. The TV cast a blue glow across his face, flickering like some kind of low-budget spotlight. His features looked softer in that light, less sharp, more real. We've been doing this for years, Friday night hangouts, sleepovers filled with snacks, bad jokes, and video games. Ever since middle school, Zane had been my person. No drama, no pressure, just him and me. But tonight felt different. Not drastically, just something under the surface. A subtle shift, like we were standing on the edge of something we hadn't named yet. He paused the game. "You good to shower first? I still smell like gym class." "Sure," I said, standing and stretching. My hoodie lifted slightly, and I caught him glance, just for a split second before looking away. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe not. I grabbed my backpack from the hallway, rifled through it, and froze. "Shit." Zane looked up from where he was gathering towels. "What?" "I forgot my towel. And, clean clothes." He raised a brow. "Seriously?" I held up my hands. "I was in a rush, okay?" Zane snorted and tossed me a folded towel from the hallway closet. "You're lucky I'm generous. And clean." "Debatable," I muttered, catching at midair. He disappeared into his room and came back holding a plain black t-shirt and a pair of gray basketball shorts. "Here. These should fit. If not, you can suffer." I took them from him, fingers brushing his. That tiny contact sparked something stupid in my chest, too fast, too loud. I tried to ignore it, tried to pretend my heart wasn't thudding like it always did when he got too close. "Thanks," I mumbled, heading toward the bathroom. "No problem, princess," he called after me, smirking. The bathroom smelled like his body spray and whatever shampoo he used, the same scent that always lingered on his hoodie whenever I borrowed it. I peeled off my clothes and stepped into the shower, the hot water beating down, steam curling up the mirror. Alone with my thoughts, I couldn't stop replaying his look, the glance, the brush of fingers, the casual way he offered me his clothes like it was nothing. Except it didn't feel like nothing. I'd always admired Zane. The way he laughed without caring who was watching. How he was so effortlessly himself all the time. The way he'd punch someone in the face if they ever made me feel small, and still turn around and sing off-key to 2000s R&B like a dork. But that admiration, it had started to shift. And tonight, standing there in his house, wearing his towel, holding his clothes, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, this night wasn't going to be like the others. Something was different, and I was starting to think I wanted it to be. The hot water hit my skin like a soft punch. Intense at first, then comforting. I let it roll down my shoulders, steam curling around me like smoke. The bathroom filled quickly with heat and fog. The mirror already misted over, hiding everything but shapes and shadows. Zane's towel hung on the back of the door. His shirt and shorts were folded neatly on the counter beside the sink. I reached for the body wash he kept there, some fresh citrus scent that smelled exactly like him, and lathered up, trying to keep my mind blank. But that never really worked when I was here. Not lately. Being in his house always made me feel weirdly exposed, not just physically, but open, seen. There was something about the way his space smelled, the posters on his walls, the messy arrangement of shampoo bottles, even the toothpaste smudge on the mirror. It was so Zane. And now, with me standing naked in the middle of it all, it felt intimate in a way I wasn't ready to name. I leaned against the tiled wall, letting the water pour over my face, chest, everything. My thoughts wandered to his look earlier, That blink too long kind of look when he handed me the clothes. I wanted to tell myself I imagined it, but I hadn't. I turned off the water and reached for the towel, wiping my face first, then running it through my hair. I was just about to step out when the bathroom door creaked open. Yo, sorry. Zane's voice. Quick, low. I froze. The air shifted instantly, hot and charged. I stood there soaked, one hand gripping the towel around my waist. Zane stood halfway inside the doorway, eyes wide like he hadn't expected a walk-in on me either. His gaze flicked across me, quick, unsure, and then locked on my face. He lifted his hand, holding his bottle of shampoo like a white flag. Forgot this. I nodded, throat dry. Okay. He didn't move. Or maybe he did, too slowly. His eyes dropped for a second, just a flash, then back up. The fog in the room made everything hazy, unreal. My cheeks burned, not just from the heat. Zane stepped in farther, his socks quiet against the tiles. He was still holding the shampoo, but didn't seem in a hurry to leave. I pulled the towel tighter around myself, suddenly hyper-aware of every inch of skin, of how the steam clung to me, how bare I felt. There was a moment, a long one, quiet, just the sound of dripping water from the shower head and our breathing. His eyes didn't say anything cruel. They didn't laugh. They didn't mock. They lingered. He looked like he wanted to speak but didn't know how. And I was the same, frozen, breathless. Something in my chest thudded, painfully loud in the silence. Then, just like that, he blinked, shook his head slightly, and turned. Right, sorry, man. I should have knocked. He was halfway out the door when I said it. Quiet, almost involuntary. It's okay. He stopped, hand still on the doorknob. Yeah. I nodded, even though he wasn't looking at me. Yeah. He didn't say anything else. Just left. The door clicked shut behind him, and the moment shattered like glass underfoot. I exhaled hard. My hands were shaking a little, though I wasn't cold. I wrapped the towel tighter, pressed my palms against the counter. My reflection in the foggy mirror was just a smudge of light and shape, blurred like even the bathroom didn't know who I was right now. What was that? It wasn't just a look. It was something heavier, something waiting, something that had been sitting under the surface for a while, quietly growing roots. He saw me. I don't mean physically. I mean, saw me. And for a second, I thought I saw something in him too. Curiosity? Confusion? Want? My mind raced, flipping through every past moment like a slideshow on hyperspeed. Every touch, every laugh that lasted too long, every time he looked at me like I was more than just eyeing his best friend. I dried off in a daze and pulled on his clothes, his shirt a little loose, still warm, still smelling like him. I stared at my reflection again, once the mirror cleared a little. Same face, same body, but everything felt different. Something passed between us in that bathroom. It was invisible, but real. A look, a breath. And once that kind of moment happens, you don't go back, even if you want to. And I wasn't sure I wanted to. It didn't start in the shower. It didn't even start that night. The truth is, I've been noticing Zane differently for months, maybe longer. But I kept shoving it down, calling it something else. A phase. A weird kind of admiration. Just being close. That's what I told myself. But I remember the first real moment. The first time the idea struck me like lightning and refused to leave. It was at school, early spring. We were hanging out in the courtyard between classes, sitting on that cracked bench under the jacaranda tree. I was scrolling through my phone, pretending not to care about anything. Zane stood a few feet away, talking to Aisha, this girl from our chemistry class. She had that soft, bubbly energy, always smiling, always tucking her hair behind her ear like she wanted to be seen. And he was giving her that smile, the one that made people feel like they were the only one in the room. The kind he usually gave me. I watched her laugh at something he said, lightly touching his arm, and something ugly twisted in my stomach. It wasn't about her. She was nice, sweet even, but I hated that she got to touch him like that. I hated how he smiled at her. I hated how I didn't even know why it bothered me so much. That night, I went home and couldn't stop replaying it. Over and over. Her hand, his smile, the look in his eyes, the ache in mine. I thought, do I like him? Then I thought, no, I'm just being weird. Then I thought, what if I'm not? Another time, last summer, our friend group went to the beach. It was one of those spontaneous trips. Someone's cousin had a car, Someone else brought snacks, and we all piled in like sardines and drove for hours until we hit sand. Zane ripped off his shirt the second we got there, racing toward the water like some movie cliché. I stayed back, towel slung over my shoulder, pretending I was texting. But I was watching him. His back, the curve of his neck, the way the sun painted gold across his skin, the ocean splashing up around his legs. I couldn't stop. When he came back, dripping wet, hair plastered to his forehead, he shook himself off like a dog and laughed, water spraying everywhere. He dropped next to me on the towel, skin warm, arm brushing mine, not even noticing how I flinched like I'd been burned. "Coming already, man," he said, catching his breath. I smiled, heart hammering. "Yeah, in a bit." He grinned and ran back into the waves. That night, I laid in bed trying to sleep, but all I saw was his smile, his chest, the sun, him, and that voice whispered again, "This isn't just friendship. Not for you." There were other moments, too. Him falling asleep next to me on the couch, our shoulders pressed together, his hair tickling my chin. Him laughing so hard at one of my dumb jokes, he almost choked on his soda. Him grabbing my wrist once when I was walking away, saying, "Stay, just for a bit." I think part of me always knew, but I didn't want to know, because knowing meant things could change. Knowing meant I had to admit something to myself, and maybe risk everything we had. So I kept it buried, under jokes, under silence, under the safety of just being his friend. But feelings are sneaky. They slip through the cracks. And now, after last night, after the look in the bathroom, after the heat of his gaze and the weight of mine, there's no pretending anymore. It wasn't just friendship. I think I always knew. We didn't talk about it. Not the glance. Not the way his eyes lingered. Not the silence that buzzed louder than any words ever could. After the shower, I stepped back into the living room like everything was normal. Towel-dried hair, his shirt clinging to my skin, a nervous smile I couldn't quite swallow. Zane was sitting cross-legged on the floor again, controller in hand, game paused like he'd never left. He didn't look up as I sat down beside him. "Ready to get destroyed?" he asked, voice light. "Too light." "Yeah," I muttered. We played for hours, or at least it felt like we did. But something was off. The banter was forced. The laughter was short-lived. The space between us, which used to feel like nothing, suddenly felt like a canyon. I kept sneaking glances at him, waiting for him to meet my eyes. He didn't, but I caught him watching me once, just once, when he thought I wasn't paying attention. His gaze flicked over my face, fast and uncertain, like he wasn't sure what he was looking for, like he didn't recognize me anymore. Or maybe he finally did. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of questions we were too scared to ask. Eventually, we gave up on the game and turned on a movie. Something stupid and loud. I couldn't even remember what it was. We laid out the mattress on the floor like we always did during sleepovers, each of us claiming our usual side. He lay on his back, one arm behind his head, eyes fixed on the ceiling. I lay on my side, facing away, eyes wide open. The blinking blue light from the controller cast slow shadows across the room. The rain had stopped, but everything felt damp and heavy, like the air itself didn't know how to breathe. I could hear him next to me, his breath soft and steady. He was close, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat from his body through the blanket. I wanted to say something, anything, just to break the weight of the moment pressing down on my chest. But I stayed silent, because I was scared. What if I imagined everything? What if he walked in by accident, and that look was just nothing? What if he saw through me and was trying to be kind by pretending it didn't happen? Or worse, what if he did feel something, but couldn't handle it? I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling. The moonlight crept through the blinds in pale stripes, cutting across Zane's poster-covered walls. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. My thoughts spiraled, looping the same questions over and over. What if he saw through me? What if I saw through him? I squeezed my eyes shut and tried to will myself to sleep. But my heart wouldn't stop racing. And every time I drifted close to rest, I'd remember the look in his eyes back in the bathroom, like we'd crossed some invisible line neither of us could name. By the time I finally slept, dawn was just beginning to creep into the sky. And between the quiet breaths of the boy lying beside me, I knew we'd never be able to go back. The room had fallen silent hours ago, but I hadn't slept. I couldn't. The blinking light from the controller had died, and the moon had moved across the sky, casting new shadows on the ceiling. I lay still, tucked under the blanket Zane had thrown me, heart beating louder than it should have been. Next to me, I could hear him shift slightly, just a rustle of fabric, a quiet exhale. Then his voice, low and unsure, slipped through the dark. "Aren't you awake?" My breath caught. I thought about pretending to sleep, about waiting this out, keeping things buried like I always had. But then I whispered back, "Yeah." Silence again, then a soft sigh. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "Me either." I turned to face him, just barely making out the shape of his face in the darkness. He was lying on his side now, too, facing me. The space between us was small. Charged. For a while, he didn't say anything. I almost thought that was it, that he'd drop it, joke it off, or say something dumb just to kill the tension. But then he spoke again, so softly I had to hold my breath to hear. Back there, in the bathroom. He trailed off. My stomach clenched. I didn't know where this was going. I wasn't sure I could survive where it might. Zane's voice cracked slightly. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I swear. I don't know. I didn't want to leave." That last sentence hit harder than it should have. My throat went tight. "You weren't imagining things," he added, almost in a whisper. I swallowed hard. "You saw something." He nodded once. "Yeah, I did." I shifted closer, heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "I've been confused," I admitted, voice raw. "For a while. About me. You. All of it." He let out a breath that sounded like relief and fear twisted together. "Same." There was a long pause. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them. The weight of them. I kept trying to explain it to myself. I said, barely more than a breath. Like, it's just friendship. Just admiration. Just being close. But it's not just," he finished. "No," I said. "It's not." Outside, a car passed. The headlights flashed against the blinds, drawing streaks of white across the walls for a second before fading. Zane shifted again, the blanket slipping slightly off his shoulder. I could see the pale curve of his neck, the faint shadow of his collarbone. He was quiet for a while. Then, "I don't know what this means." Like if he paused. "I've never thought about guys this way. Not until you." My chest tightened, but not in fear this time. "I don't know either," I said honestly. "I'm still figuring it out. But I felt this for longer than I want to admit." He let out a shaky breath. "I don't regret it. The way I looked at you. I know I should maybe feel weird about it. But I don't." "Me neither," I said. I keep replaying it. Over and over. His voice softened again. "You look back." "Yeah," I said. "I did." There was a pause and then a touch. His fingers brushed against mine under the blanket. Light. Barely there, but enough to light something in my chest that I hadn't let myself feel before. He didn't move away. Neither did I. Our hands found each other in the dark, his thumb grazing the back of mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like we hadn't spent years pretending we were only friends. Like this had always been there, waiting. No kiss. No grand moment. Just two boys lying side by side, holding hand for the first time. Breathing. Feeling. "I don't want things to be weird," he whispered. "They're already weird," I said, and we both laughed softly like it was okay. Like we were okay. The silence that followed was full, not empty. A warm, quiet thing. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or what this meant for us, or who we'd become from this. But in that moment, under the covers, in the glow of whispered truths and bare shoulders and trembling hands, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. The next morning, everything looked the same, but felt completely different. The sunlight filtered through the blinds in soft yellow lines, dancing across the walls and floor like nothing had changed. Birds chirped outside. A car started in the distance. Zane's room smelled like dust and body spray and old pizza. But my heart beat slower now. Softer, like it finally found a rhythm it understood. I opened my eyes and blinked into the morning light. Zane was still asleep beside me, one arm draped over his stomach, the blanket half kicked off. His hair stuck out in all directions, messy and perfect. I just watched him for a moment, unsure if it was okay to feel this full, this close. I didn't move until he stirred, eyes cracking open, squinting at the brightness. "Mornin'," he mumbled, voice raspy. "Hey." We both lay there, quiet, looking at each other with that cautious smile you give someone when you know something changed but neither of you know what comes next. Zane sat up first, stretching with a yawn. "You hungry?" I nodded. "Always." He tossed me a pair of socks and padded down the hallway to the kitchen. I followed, slower. Everything felt more fragile now, like walking through a dream that might disappear if I blinked too hard. We ate cereal while pretending not to stare. His knee bumped mine under the table once, and neither of us moved away. When it was time for me to leave, Zane walked me to the front door. He leaned against the frame while I pulled my hoodie over his shirt, still wearing it, not ready to give it back. "Thanks for letting me crash." "Always," he said and smiled. He bumped my shoulder lightly with his, just like he always did, but this time it felt different. Not teasing, gentle, reassuring. I stepped out into the sunlight, the warmth unexpected after the storm the night before. As I walked home, I couldn't stop replaying everything. Not just the night, but all of it. The years, the feelings, the way he looked at me like he finally saw the truth I'd been too scared to say out loud. Still, the fear crept in around the edges. What would this mean? At school? With our friends? For him? For me? That fear stayed with me all afternoon. It curled in my stomach as I sat on my bed, trying to distract myself with homework that didn't matter. Then my phone buzzed. "Zane." So that happened. I stared at the screen for a while, smiling despite myself. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Me?" "Yeah, it did." A few seconds later, another buzz. "Zane." I don't know what this is, but I'm not pretending it didn't mean something. I swallowed hard. My heart thudded. "Zane, we don't have to call it anything yet. But don't pull away, okay?" I stared at his words, reread them again and again. My chest ached in that quiet, blooming way it does when something matters. "Me? I won't." And I meant it. The sunlight through my bedroom window shifted across my desk. My room looked the same. Same posters, same books, same messy bed. But everything had changed. And maybe that was okay. At school, nothing officially changed. We didn't make some grand announcement. There were no dramatic declarations or Facebook status updates. No one gasped and pointed in the hallway. But something had changed, and I felt it in the quietest ways. At lunch, Zane sat closer than usual. Not close enough for anyone to notice, but close enough that our knees sometimes brushed under the table. We'd share earbuds, one each, listening to the same playlist like we always used to, but now every song felt like a secret. His eyes would flick to mine when someone else was talking, and we'd smile for no reason. Just a glance. Just a second. But it was everything. And still, we kept it hidden. Partly because we didn't know what to call it. Partly because we were scared of what people would say, what we'd have to explain. But mostly because it was still new. Fragile. Like a flame cupped between our palms. For a while, that was enough. Until it wasn't. It happened on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the sleepover. I was walking to my locker when I saw him talking to a girl outside the gym. She was laughing, her hand on his arm. I froze. That ugly, familiar feeling rose in my chest again, tight, sharp, heavy. Jealousy, doubt, fear. I knew that girl. Priya. Sweet. Pretty. The kind of girl people expect a guy like Zane to be with. And the way he looked at her, smiling, eyes crinkling at the corners, it was too easy to remember that day in the courtyard months ago. That same ache came roaring back. I turned before they saw me and walked away, heat rushing to my face, breath catching in my throat. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I avoided him, didn't sit with him at lunch, ignored his texts, told myself I was being stupid, but the fear clung tight. That night, he showed up at my place. My mom let him in without asking, and the next thing I knew, he was in my room, standing by the door like he didn't know if I wanted him there. "I wasn't flirting," he said before I even opened my mouth. I stared at him, arms crossed. Didn't look that way. He stepped closer, brow furrowed. "She asked about notes from history class." That's it. I didn't say anything. My silence said enough. Zane ran a hand through his hair and let out a slow breath. "Look, I get it. I do. I don't want to hurt you. I don't know how to be this. Around people. At school. It's all new for me, too. I looked at him, really looked, and saw it. The nervous energy in his shoulders. The quiet fear behind his eyes. It wasn't rejection I saw there. It was uncertainty, vulnerability. He stepped closer and sat on the edge of my bed. I'm not playing games, Zion. I don't know exactly what we are or how this works, but I know I want to try with you. I nodded slowly, the tightness in my chest beginning to ease. Me too. He smiled, small, grateful. And for a moment, we just sat there. The world outside our walls still spinning, still loud, still complicated. But in that space between fear and trust, we were figuring it out. Slowly, secretly, together. It's been a few weeks since that night. The world didn't stop spinning. Teachers still give homework. The cafeteria still smells like burnt cheese, and no one's life got flipped upside down in a Hollywood-style love montage. Things are still messy, unclear. We're still figuring it out. But something in me shifted that night. Quietly, irrevocably. It didn't happen all at once. Not with a kiss or some grand declaration. Just a look. One moment in a foggy bathroom, wrapped in borrowed clothes and drenched in silence. That's where it began. When I close my eyes, I still see it, the way Zane looked at me. Not shocked, not embarrassed, just seeing me, really seeing me. Like something in both of us had been buried for years, waiting for the right second to breathe. I think about that night more than I probably should, and every time I do, I realize how far we've come since then. We're still not public, not really. Some friends might suspect, some probably know, but we haven't told anyone. We're not ready for all the questions, the labels, the way people start treating you differently once you step outside the lines. But we're not hiding either, not from each other. Sometimes Zane slips his hand into mine when we're walking home from school. Sometimes we sit too close at lunch and don't move when our legs touch. He'll nudge me during class with his knee under the desk, like he just wants to remind me he's there. They're small things, but they feel big. The fear is still there. It sits in my chest like a knot that won't quite untangle. But the difference is, I'm not carrying it alone anymore. I'm not standing on the edge, wondering if it's all in my head. He's there with me, choosing this too. The sun is setting now. We're sitting on the school bleachers, side by side. The field below is empty, just a few crickets chirping in the tall grass. The sky is streaked in orange and pink, and everything is bathed in that golden light that makes the whole world look softer. Zane laughs at something dumb I said. That full, real laugh that always makes my chest tighten. And then he does something simple. He reaches for my hand. Right there, out in the open. No one else is around, but it still feels like a moment. I glance down, then at him. He's not looking at me. He's watching the sky. Like holding my hand is the most normal thing in the world. I squeeze his fingers, and he squeezes back. We sit there like that, not needing to say anything. Because everything I want to say is already there, between us. I was just showering at my best friend's house. But then he looked at me like he saw the real me. And now, sitting beside him, hand in hand under the setting sun, I finally feel like I'm becoming that person, whoever he is. And I'm not afraid.